You stopped apologizing for your silence. You stopped rushing to explain your mood. You stopped adjusting your nervous system to manage someone else's chaos. And without even realizing it, you became the kind of woman people can't stop thinking about. Especially men. Not because you're trying to be attractive, but because your system is no longer leaking. And that kind of coherence, it's rare. Rare enough to trigger a biological response. There's something that happens when you spend enough time alone, long enough for your brain to reorganize, your cortisol to drop, and your identity to rebuild without being watched. And when that happens, the field around you changes. You walk into a room and people can't quite explain what they're feeling, but they feel it. A kind of quiet tension. A pull. Like they're in the presence of someone who doesn't need anything from them. This video is about the biology behind that feeling. What solitude actually does to your brain, your heart, your hormones, and why that creates a field men unconsciously respond to. Not because you're chasing, because you're calibrated. Your brain was never designed to be constantly interrupted. And when you live with others, especially when you're expected to keep the peace, your mind spends more time managing tension than building clarity. But when you live alone long enough for the noise to stop, something starts to shift. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, self-awareness, and long-term vision, begins to activate differently. You're no longer bracing for someone else's mood. You're no longer scanning the room for safety cues. You're finally able to access your own signal. And deeper than that, the default mode network, the system that runs your internal narrative, begins to reorganize. The loops that used to be shaped by external feedback start getting replaced with something more stable. Your own rhythm, your own memory, your own voice. Neurologically, this shows up as a rise in alpha and theta waves. Brain states associated with inner focus, emotional regulation, and calm vigilance. And the longer your brain operates from that frequency, the more regulated your entire system becomes. It's not just that you feel different. It's that your cognitive baseline has changed. You think more clearly. You recover from stress faster. You're no longer wired for performance. You're wired for coherence. And that coherence isn't invisible. It's felt, especially by people who've never known what safety feels like. When you stop negotiating your safety through someone else's behavior, your nervous system finally gets the message: we're not in danger anymore. That shift doesn't happen overnight. But it starts the moment you're no longer adjusting your body to survive a space that doesn't feel safe. And that's exactly what solitude gives you. A space where your system can stop racing. Without constant social input, the amygdala, your brain's threat detection center, starts to calm down. You're not scanning for micro-reactions. You're not translating tone. You're not on call. And over time, your vagus nerve, the main communication line between your brain and body, begins to rewire your baseline state. Instead of living in fight or flight, you start moving into something else entirely. Rest, repair, and regulation. Your heart rate variability increases. Cortisol drops. DHEA, the hormone linked to vitality, clarity, and resilience, begins to rise. And for the first time in maybe years, your body starts to feel like a safe place to be. That stability doesn't make you colder. It makes you harder to destabilize. And that's what people, especially men, start picking up on. Not your mood, not your looks, your regulation. Because when your nervous system holds coherence, you stop adapting to the room. The room starts adapting to you. This isn't just a feeling, it's measurable. Your heart produces an electromagnetic field, one that extends beyond your body and shifts based on your emotional and physiological state. When your nervous system is dysregulated, when you're in constant adaptation, performance, or bracing, that field becomes chaotic, unstable, incoherent. But when your system finally settles and your internal signals start syncing up, brain, heart, breath, rhythm, the field around you begins to stabilize. The HeartMath Institute has studied this for years. They've shown that coherence, the state of physiological harmony, creates a stronger, more ordered electromagnetic signal. And people feel that, not metaphorically and biologically, because the human body is constantly reading the fields around it. It's part of how we interpret safety. It's why some people feel calming to be around, while others leave you wired and exhausted. When you live alone long enough to stop overriding your instincts, your body stops broadcasting stress. It starts broadcasting coherence. That's why people start leaning in. Why they open up without knowing why. Why they can't explain what they're sensing around you. But they feel it anyway. Your energy isn't a performance. It's a frequency. And coherence makes it unmistakable. Living alone doesn't just give you space. It gives you something even more dangerous to the old version of you. A mirror. When no one else is shaping your reactions, you start to notice what was never really yours. The moods you absorbed, the patterns you repeated, the roles you played to avoid conflict. And as your nervous system calms, your identity starts to reorganize. Not around performance, but around clarity. You start choosing your responses instead of defaulting to survival. You start remembering what desire feels like when no one else is dictating it. You stop asking your environment who you are and start telling it. That shift runs deeper than mindset. It's neurochemical. The pathways in your brain that once fired under pressure begin to prune themselves. New circuits form, circuits based on choice, not coping. And the people who were drawn to the version of you who overexplained, overextended, overfunctioned, they start to pull away because that loop no longer exists. What takes its place is something they can't influence. Something not shaped by their approval. Something coherent. You're not performing stillness. You are stillness. And that's the moment it clicks. You're not changing your identity. You're remembering who you were before your system got hijacked. You're not doing anything. Not smiling more. Not making eye contact. Not curating your words to seem more open or more interesting. And still, people start treating you differently. They lean in. They soften their voice. They ask questions they wouldn't ask anyone else. It's not because of how you look. It's because of how you feel. When your nervous system holds coherence, your body emits a signal that's unmistakable to people who've never felt safe in themselves. It reads like gravity. That's not an aura. That's the nervous system in a state of neurocardiac regulation. That's heart rate variability syncing with calm brain waves. That's what calm feels like to the people around you. But most of them don't know that. They just know they feel pulled in. And for men who are used to women bending, over-explaining, over-giving, it triggers something they don't know how to name. Curiosity, obsession, longing, or discomfort they can't place. Because you're not an emotional landing pad anymore. You're a reference point. And reference points disrupt every pattern that relied on you staying small. This isn't about being mysterious. It's about being regulated. And regulation is felt before you ever open your mouth. At some point, something clicks. You realize you're not exhausted after social interactions anymore. You're not second-guessing your tone. You're not shrinking to avoid the wrong kind of attention. Because your system is no longer chasing safety. It's holding it. And the people around you, they reorganize too. Some pull away because there's nothing to feed on. Others come closer, drawn to the quiet order they can't explain. But none of it rattles you anymore, because you're no longer responding from an open loop. You're responding from coherence. Your system has learned what it feels like to live in resonance with itself. And you're not giving that up for anything. This is what people feel when they're around a woman who lives alone and uses that space to rebuild, not disappear. It's not independence. It's not mystery. It's not a performance. It's biology. And it changes everything. If this hits somewhere real, don't leave it here. There's more. More depth. More science. More of what your system has been waiting to hear. Subscribe. Watch what's next. Let the shift continue.